All right, we are live. Thank you all for joining us. This is Aaron Ludin, your host today, and I'm joined here with my friend Dave Austin, who is a mental performance coach and now also a best-selling author. He is a former professional athlete in multiple sports. He trains professional athletes all throughout different sports on their mental performance, and he just came out with this book. It's a #1 bestseller in 6 different countries within 24 hours. It's called Be a Beast. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about some of the strategies that he talks about in the book, and some of the things he says will unleash your animal instincts for performance-driven results. So, Dave, thanks for having the time to meet with me and talk about your book and talk about some of these concepts that might help people in their life and their business.
Thanks, Aaron. Pleasure to be here, man. I enjoyed being with you at Fort Benning, serving our Army Rangers. That was awesome. So when you asked to come, absolutely, I'm here. I'm here, ready for you.
Yeah, so for those of you that haven't been following or don't know the story, Dave and I went a couple months back, I think it was back in March. We flew out to Fort Benning, and we spoke to a number of transitioning soldiers, a big program. They had a bunch of different speakers, and we were speaking about entrepreneurship or finding your dream job. And Dave gave a message that I could tell that he was a rock star speaker. And so I had to pull him aside and say, hey, man, we got to get you on an interview, got to get into your head a little bit, and just share it with some of the people in my circle and some of my clients. So let's talk a little bit about your book and talk about, or before we talk about your book, actually, let's talk a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and who you work with. Can you give kind of an overview,
Sure.
Hit on the things I missed?
Absolutely. So I'm a mental performance coach. What in the world is a mental performance coach? This means that, my job is to get your mind to work for you rather than against you. As you said, I was I've lost your picture now. Does that matter? But anyway.
No, we're good. Sorry.
All right, perfect. No problem. So I'm work on to perform at the highest level. You mentioned I was a world ranked tennis player at one time. So I had a chance to, travel the world, see the world, and fall on my face a lot in my own performance. Now I had to get to a certain point to be at the professional level, to be in the, in the world class rankings. But still, there are so many levels that I didn't even understand when I was there. And learning how to get your mind and our thoughts in line applies to everything. So now, in college, I have a degree in psychology because I was always fascinated at how does the mind work. But college was only such a small little piece of my whole experience. Once I got out, traveled the world, I read a lot, more and more came together. And then I also take a lot of quiet time to really be inspired. So out of all that, and now I've had a career of over 20 years in helping others become their best, whether it's I'm most known in pro sports because it's visual. People see that, an NFL team or an Olympic team, it's very out there. So that's where I have the most notoriety. But I do just as much in the business world, and I've done a lot in real estate. That's an area that I'm very familiar with because, and I know a lot of your followers are in real estate. But the difference is, it's not the property that's going to sell. Yes, people see a property that's going to buy it, but they can choose whoever they're going to buy it from. So how do you actually become different? How do you actually be that person that is thriving when others around you aren't? And it really is about your thoughts, your energy. It's all the unseen things. I call it the invisible power of success. It's those things that are just as real as anything else. We just don't see them, but we feel them. And when you start knowing this and you start living by some of the principles that I've been blessed to be working with so many outstanding entrepreneurs. And, as far as pro sports, I've had 4 MVPs in Major League Baseball. I've had a U.S. Olympic team go to the World Cup and do the best that the United States team had ever done. It's just applying these principles. But if they work in sports, it's kind of like from the locker room to the boardroom. They work in life.
Amen to that. So I'm going to ask you real quick that was a great, obviously, overview of everything, some of the things you've done, some of the people you've worked with. I'm going to ask you to brag a little bit. I know that you've spoken on a large number of large stages, and give me an idea of some of the types of people you've had the chance to share the stage with. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but give me an idea of some of the places you've spoken and some of the people you've shared stages with, and that you're friends with in the speaking business.
Well, thank you. Well, I've spoken all over. I mean, I spoke as far away as Uzbekistan. You probably didn't know that. I got invited to go on the presidential delegation. That was really cool to go and see what that experience that. So that's right after the Soviet Union broke up, and they wanted Uzbekistan wanted to stand on its country on its own. So it was the president. I met the president and did all this, and that was really cool. I also got invited to speak in India at the World's Women's Wellness Congress. Thought that was pretty interesting. Here's a guy that's more known in sports, and I'm being invited to speak at the Women Wellness Congress. So that was pretty cool. A gentleman heard me speak in Lake Tahoe at a big convention. It was a CEO space. I used to many times spoke there. I've spoken all over in India, Canada. I mean, I've spoken all over the United States. I'm blessed. Some of the speakers that I've had a chance to speak with, I don't know. I mean, of course, Bob Proctor wrote the foreword for my book, so that we knew each other from that. So many great. Jack Canfield. Gosh, I can just go on and on. I'm trying to think of anybody that
talking about your buddy Harv Eckert.
Harv Eckert. I used to speak on his stages. He had one of the biggest kind of convention or deal he ever had was called what was it called? It was it was in Aspen, of all places, and he had the top of the top. It was Seminar of the Century. So I had a chance to speak at Seminar of the Century too, and it was great. It was 3 days, 6,000 people filled up with just the best of the best there. So that was really awesome. I've even had a chance, because I've been involved in music, to actually get a chance to speak in front of 65,000 people in the Oakland Coliseum.
Wow.
That's cool. It's all cool. But you know what? The truth is, if you can change one person's life, that's really the key that makes it important. My first book, I'm very blessed. This book has come out and done extremely well. But when I wrote my first book, I remember going out to do my first talk on that book, and it was at a Barnes and Noble, and I was so nervous. I'm going, God, not nervous about, I love speaking, but it was more nervous about what if no one shows up. And luckily, my wife slapped me and said, hey, if one person shows up and it changes their life, is it worth it? I went, wow. Man, thanks for getting things straight. And I went that whole tour. I did a whole tour across the country going the power of one. I'm just going for one. Now, as it turned out, there were a lot more than one person showed up. But there was one person in particular I'll never forget. She came to me as I'm going up the escalator to speak. She goes, "Oh, are you here to meet the author?" And I didn't know what to tell her. I'm like, I am the author. She goes, "Oh, your book has changed my life." And I'm like, oh my God, I got my one. I was so, but sometimes in life, we all, like, what makes it important? Is it a million seller that makes it important, or one person says, this has changed my life? So I like to kind of bring it all down to the little things. This changes, like the new book changes one life, then you know what? It's been worth writing. It's been worth doing whatever you do, to get it out there and do all the marketing and, do all the talking that you do around to promote it. Every bit is worth it.
Sure. Well, let's dive into the book a little bit. In your book, you've got a number of different animals that you use and acronyms that are anchored with those animals, right? And I want to ask you about a couple of these acronyms, what they mean, and then really how to actually apply them. Because I know that your book dives in a lot into the concepts and the ideas and the strategies. I want to know, when you're working with that linebacker or you're working with that pitcher, where does this apply, and then how can people apply this to the business world? So let's start with the one that I remember the best, because we talked about it a lot at Fort Benning. Let's talk about the crocodile. So tell me about the crocodile, the Respa crocodile. A lot of my real estate friends will find Respa funny because it's a real estate acronym as well. But tell me about Respa and what it means, and then if you could dive a little bit into the psychology of someone who's really anchored Respa into their brain, where does that kick in and where does it help them to perform?
Amen. Well, that's a great question. It is funny because I do coach some, privately real estate salespeople, and very, very successful. And the first thing I said, Respa, and they kind of looked at me a whole different, like, why is that making you look like that? It means a whole lot different than how I'm going to share it with you. But so first of all, I want to tell you how even the beginning of how that started. Roger Anthony is one of the brightest guys I ever met. You talked about, speaking engagements. Here I got a chance to be around so many speakers. Roger is not the household name that some of the other speakers are. He just happened to be the best. He was from Australia, amazing man. And we became partners. And what we did is the work that I've done for 30 years really, and the work that he had done for 35 years, we blended them together. And that's what made the magic of Be a Beast. One of the things that I was always looking for when you're on the firing line, no matter what that firing line is, I've now have worked with Army Rangers since even Fort Benning. I got involved in the Rangers Best, but in real estate, when you're making a sell or trying to get a listing or any football, my own son plays as a professional quarterback in pro football, making decisions all the time under pressure in that moment. And so what Roger came up with was the #1 mental retention program in the world, tested. Because it's one thing to know something and it's like, oh, this is really good, but then how do you use it when you're under the fire, when you need it now? And so he came up with the animals that we use now. And so I'll tell you about Respa. I just wanted to give you a little history first of why we do it and how incredibly well it works. So the crocodile and lived together. They lived at the same time. They're really cousins. They fed in the same feeding grounds. They did everything, and be honest with you, I haven't seen a dinosaur lately, but there are 32 species of crocodiles living today. Now, why is that? Why did the dinosaurs die off and the crocodiles survived? So again, especially if you're in your cells, you want to pay attention to this. You don't want to be a dinosaur. We know a few dinosaurs, don't we? But
we do know a couple of dinosaurs, and I saw some crocodiles at the zoo today. Actually,
oh, you did? Oh, wow! You saw Respa? Did you say?
I actually went to a zoo.
Did you try to pet Respa? I wouldn't. I don't think you should do that. But anyway, so why are they still here and dinosaurs aren't? Because they learned how to be adaptive to an ever-changing environment. As things happen, for an example, they can slow up their heartbeat to 3 beats per minute. I mean, it's amazing. So if there's a drought, there's no water, they just slow their heartbeat down. They really go into hibernation. Their skin is such that when everything freezes over, their skin won't let that cold pierce through. I mean, there's so many different elements that add up to why the crocodile survived and still thriving today. So how do we relate to that? Why would we, how is that important to us? Well,
sounds like we got to become a sales crocodile.
Yeah, got to become a sales crocodile. Respa. What does that Respa mean? Why did we name the crocodile Respa? Well, we watched a crocodile who had not eaten for 3 months. Then the water came back and it moved across this lake. It could have gone there in 30 seconds, but the wallabies knew, that the crocodile somehow knew that if it came flying across, they would all be gone. So this crocodile was filmed for 21 days of moving about 10 feet a day. That's all, just so it could be a log. So finally, when it got in position, the king wildebeest actually went to move the log out of the way, and the crocodile ate that day. But it was very patient, very persistent. So Respa for us, what does that mean? The R means first and foremost in any situation, first, relax. From a relaxed point of view, you can then, the E is you can evaluate. See what happens to us mostly, something happens. Say your wife, or for me, my wife says something, and I go into an emotion. And then I'm acting out of a way that's not even really appropriate for the circumstance. I'm out of control because I'm acting off of emotion. My emotion is taking me to my subconscious, and my subconscious is only going to do what I'm familiar with, and so it's not even acting properly in this situation. So when you first relax, you then can evaluate. So that's the E. The R is to relax. Then the E is to evaluate. Then S, you can strategize. You can strategize with much more composure. And then the P is, as I talked about the crocodile that we called Respa, how patient it came across the water. Be patient so you can reevaluate for a moment. And then when you act, you act with such commitment. You act with everything you've got. I had a baseball player that was so funny. He was, I got another ball player called me and said, "Hey, are you watching ESPN right now?" I said, "No, why?" They've just gone to Jason's at bats. I said, "They have? Why did ESPN just go to his next at bat?" He says, "Because the first time up, he hit a home run to right field. Second time up, he hit a home run to left. Third time up, he hit a home run to center." And there's a whole nother story about are game ready. That maybe at the end, if we have enough time, I'll do a game ready with everyone. It's a visualization process. We saw that before the game. But anyway, so ESPN rushes to see what's happening on his next at bat. Well, after the game, after having this remarkable game, he ended up not getting another home run, but 3 home runs, still really, really remarkable. You know, someone said, like, you know, what was it? He goes, I respa, you know, just meaning that, you know, in RESPA, you can do it in a millisecond or you can take 24 hours. It's like sometimes, let's say you get a email you don't particularly like. So, you know, we just act on emotion. We could just blow it all up out of really more than it is. But if we RESPA, maybe even for 24 hours, then we can approach it from a whole different point of view or a whole different perspective. Or we can do it, like, as I say, in this batter situation, it's a millisecond that he RESPA. Relax, evaluate, strategize. It all happens in a millisecond. I have a Pittsburgh Steeler that I'm working with right now, and we were just talking yesterday. He's doing just phenomenal. It's preseason right now, and he's really tearing it up. And he just keeps going. When I asked his intentions of this week, because we always debrief after their games, and he says, RESPA, it is my key. Because even down, you know, he's a defensive lineman. He gets too caught up and doesn't take that moment to relax, so he stays present and in the moment. And when he stays in the moment, then everything else is so much easier to do. Our problem is that we kind of hold on to the past or we look to the future, so we're not present.
All right. So before we move on to another animal, what's the one thing that you think, if you were a salesperson or a real estate person or someone in a business setting, what's the number one thing you think? Obviously, it's all important. What's the one thing you think people could take that's most important to take from the RESPA concept?
Well, when you're going in to show a piece of property, and let's say you've got a lot of different things going on in your life. You got bills to pay, or there's an issue at the house or whatever. How do you just bring yourself back to the joy of what you're doing, the sell? And I'm saying joy, not because, gosh, if I don't make this sell, you know, I'm not going to be able to, you know, put food on the table. That attitude or whatever, that energy is felt. Energy is felt, right? So even though you're not saying anything, you wonder why the people don't feel comfortable. You want to make, when someone sees a house and they go, wow, I like this house. This is incredible. But if you're uncomfortable, they'll become uncomfortable and they don't even know why. There's like, something must be missing in this house. But if you're really comfortable in your skin and you're not worried about, is this person going to buy it or that energy, then your comfort translates to their comfort. Remember, I said something about invisible power. This is the invisible power that you have. So when you RESPA, you stay present and you stay in the joy of, wow, they told me what they wanted in this house, and look at this. This is everything they wanted. So they get caught up because you now are in complete communication with each other. I have something called the 30-day beast mode challenge, where people go through, where it's a group of people. They're real estate, they're presidents of companies, they're pro football players, they're chefs, all walks of life, actors, singers, all take, you know, and so we share and we learn the principles. I had 2 real estate people in one group of the beast mode on challenge, and they were talking about it back and forth. And one person has become like the top salesperson in Vancouver. She's just nailing it. And they said, well, what's the difference? You know, she says, well, one, I've learned to listen. See, RESPA helps you listen. And I'll tell you what, that is something that you want to really know, a really key. Maybe you've heard this or maybe you haven't, but the number one key to really selling is listening. Because it was so funny, and I can tell, I coach her personally too. She is just blown up, but she really listens to the needs rather than say, no, I know it all, this. Really hear it, but then you use all the work you know of your particular area that you sell in. You do know that, but then you meet there because you really hear. And I can't tell you how important that is. I can tell you, because I'm going to tell you right now, how important that is for someone to go, man, this person really hears me. This person really gets me. There's that unseen comfort that just comes from that. And they know, even if this is not the right house for them, I'm going to follow this person wherever, because this person, he or she gets who I am. The only way you can get who someone is to really pay attention and listen. And that's why it's important to RESPA. Always remember RESPA. So you stay present with them. You stay present instead of getting into, gosh, I hope I make this sell. That's a whole different kind of energy.
So for those of you out there that are salespeople, I know we've got real estate people, we've got other sales professionals, we've probably got some Cutco reps out there that are going to watch this. The best place, at least in my experience, where I would be utilizing Dave's Respa is to, when you're pulling up for an appointment, when you're pulling up for a meeting, when you're excited about things, when you're getting on a sales call, when you're having that important encounter with the client, it's really easy to get either thrown off guard by things going on in your personal life or fires in your business, or it's also really easy to get overly excited just because you're so anxious for the appointment. And so it's really important. A lot of the people I coach, I see them getting into a habit of either getting so excited that they're going too fast, they're too fast, they're too loud, and they're not as in tune with their client. And so I think Respa is really important. And like you said, relax and be patient and let yourself create the sale instead of trying to plow your way through it. I think that's a big mistake a lot of salespeople out there make, is they think they can just come with so much energy, they just change everything. And some people are a little thrown off guard by it. And when you're in tune, like you said, and you're really listening, it's okay to be amped up and whatnot, but you've got to be patient about it. I'm going to use a quick example, and then I'm going to ask you a question that one of my favorite sales mentors used to tell me. And he talked a lot about upselling, and I'm just going to use this as one example. It can apply to any type of sales. But let's say that, Dave, let's say you walked into a store and you wanted to buy a suit. And you walk in, you're like, hey, I need a new suit. And the guy's like, perfect. We've got a sale on belts and shoes and socks and ties and everything else too. You'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I need a suit, right? And so if they get really anxious up front and they try to throw it on your face, you're like, whoa, 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 buddy, I came here for a suit. I just want my suit. Like, that's it. But on the flip side, let's say that I say, hey, how can I help you? You say, I'm here for a suit. I say, right this way. I show you some suits. You put on a suit. You like the suit. And I say, awesome. Give me a minute. Let me get this all packed up for you. Let me get it, all wrapped and everything. And feel free to browse around and take your time. And then I kind of watch you. So you're browsing around, and I'm being patient, and you might pick up a tie. And I might walk by and say, hey, just so you know, Dave, we do have a special on our ties and our belts and our shoes. And I might say, just so you know, this one would match perfectly. And I would slowly, patiently let you look around, let you touch things, let you ask questions, plant this seed that, hey, we can help you if you want. You might walk out with a brand new belt, a brand new tie, a brand new shirt, a brand new everything. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the idea here, I think that Respa really applies in this situation, because I see this all the time with people in phone sales, and I see it a ton at trade shows. So when someone's pitching a product or selling a product from a booth, they get so overly anxious, they puke all over the client, essentially, and they just need to slow down and Respa a little bit. And like you said, picture that crocodile slowly gliding, and then when it's ready, it goes for the kill. And so you made me think of that. I had to share that.
Well, I'm glad you did, because there's another in the book. You'll see this phrase: get there fast by going slow. I can't tell you how much more I've accumulated since I've started absolutely applying that in my life. I'm talking financially. I'm talking about the joy. I'm blessed to have 4 boys, a fantastic marriage relationship for 29 years. But when I've been able to slow down, I get so much more faster. Sometimes we actually get too busy to be successgal. You know that? I mean, you see people they're just busy. But but when you actually slow down, you become more successful. This one gal that I privately coach out of Vancouver has become just amazing how successful she is. One of the things that it was funny, she was going, and as she slowed down, she found advantages within herself that she stood out from other realtors, because she cared and she started helping their clients in different ways. But then the other thing she did is that she started to she was selling a particular a home for a certain amount, that all of a sudden she was able to, because as she got more confident, she moved into where right now she's making more money than she's ever made, but she's selling less houses. She's just selling she's moved into a higher end home. And that, there's room for everyone. There's, so I'm not trying to tell everybody, hey, you got to go to higher end. But
Sure.
that's one of the things that she knew. She slowed down enough to understand, because if she had never slowed down, she would have just kept going, selling.
Too
And
busy.
finally, when I got her to slow down because she was so busy, she was able to then move into, larger cells. And she has more time to do things. And then you learn how to train your brain so you don't get yourself, like your brain is so used to doing things out of control that it will create out of controlness. So you just, that's a lot of the tips within this book, is how to just keep maintaining and doing daily practices. I never could have become a professional tennis player, become a world, ranked without practice. I could have the greatest mind and everything, but I still had to go out and hit backhands, still had to go out and hit forehands. So it's a combination of getting your mind work. So, our brain's the same way. The things that we do, like, why do people keep coming back to the 30-day challenge? I've had some people go through my 30-day challenge every single time I do them. Well, it's pretty much the same material. Why would they keep doing it? Well, the reason they do it is because they want to get in the energy of it. They like the energy of it. And then they keep learning more. So the material might seem the same. It's like taking a great book. You read a great book, you go, oh man, this is so good. And then read it again 6 months later, you go, wow, I never saw that before.
Yep.
Because not that the words have changed, but you've changed. And so I think one of the greatest joys in life is always advancing. Every day I get up, it's a new day, brand new day. What can I learn today? What can I even learn on this podcast? I don't come to a podcast just to teach. I come to a podcast, or I go to a speaking engagement because I want to be there. I want to learn. I want to grow. What am I going to how am I going to expand today? When you're in that mode, it's like, a river that stops running, it gets stagnant, it's smelling, it's ugly. But when a river is flowing, it's clear, it's beautiful. Well, that's the way I want my life to be. And that's the way that I help orchestrate other people's lives. So they're flowing. And when we're rushing, just the opposite of just not expanding, then you're rushing, you're also going by things and missing the beauty of each step of today. The little things, because it takes a lot of little things to do a big thing. You had asked me, and I know you're going to ask me another question, but you had asked me before we went on air, how did our book become #1 in 6 countries overnight? How did it just blow up like that? And there's I probably can't answer every question to that. I don't know every reason. There's probably certain elements that I don't know, but a lot of the reason is because our prep. Because of the time we took in to write the book, so that the book really had meaning, so it would have what's called legs. I see a lot of books being done right now that just write anything, get it out there. So a lot of people are having books out there, but it's like a good song. You take the time to really bring your heart and soul to something. That's something that's going to be felt. And then then it goes way beyond just a book. Then you have to, position it and market it. So, and surround yourself. I had someone who I've actually coached before, who's is one of the best marketers of books out there. Luckily, that we were able to retain her to be a part of this, and she's so good at what she does. And so it's a plan. And then, then as you go, you're a crocodile, you kind of see what's happening. Like we saw something that was like in Canada, it was #2 and it wasn't going to #1. And so she called me and said, hey, do you want to put a few more, because some, advertisements into Canada right now, and put a little bit of emphasis there because you're so close to #1. Well, yes. So it was a planned program, and then it was staying on top of it as we were going to get there. And if you do that in life, I mean, success, it's like in the book, you might have saw this, I can't even think of my own book right now, but Success Leaves Clues. Basically, it has a feeling to it that you get into, and it's like a car mechanic. I know nothing about cars, but a car mechanic, a guy who does it for a living, I'll take my car in and he'll hear it and go, oh, here's the problem. I'll go, oh, great, because he's in it every day. So when as a
SAPA section, right?
Huh?
Is that in that SAPA section?
Yeah. It's but success is there's a rhythm to it. Success has a rhythm to it, and so it's learning your rhythm and being prepared for it. And then you adjust as you go, like we said in the crocodile, but you have so much that you've done to prepare yourself. The other thing that I really appreciate in a real estate or a salesperson is how much knowledge they have of the area. Because I don't. When I'm going in there, I have things I want. I don't know they're out there, but someone who goes, oh, yeah, let me dive into this. And you kind of get that sense of comfort because they've done their homework. You can tell when people are winging it and when someone comes well prepared. My son last year, he led 6 games that they were behind and won in the last play of the game 6 times. And they're going like, he's the luckiest football player out there. And he goes, yeah, I'm very lucky. What is luck? That's when preparation meets opportunity.
So apparently he's been practicing in those situations. Sounds like
absolutely, and he's prepared for it. And he does. We work all the time together. He's mentally ready that instead of focus on oh no we're down, he focuses on what am I going to do, and he stays present and that's the only way you can come up with those kind of unbelievable results. Sure.
Let's talk about Nobo, and I'm going to try to rapid fire some questions at you because we're running low on time, and I want to make sure that we get through a lot more content with you. So I'm going to try to get through these quick with you. But Nobo is one of my favorite concepts in the book. It's something that I think really could resonate with a lot of people out there. Because tell me what Nobo means, and tell me a little bit about it.
Well, Nobo is the flying fish. I mean, if you think about it, oh my gosh, fish aren't meant to fly. They're not meant to fly, but yet these fish fly up to 2 miles. We have them in our video series. You'll see them flying, and it's like incredible. So for us, what Nobo is there's no box, there's no boundaries. We're the only ones that stop us from our greatness. There's so much to us that we don't even know. I mean, for these fish that's why we use these animals. These fish to all of a sudden say, hey, we need to escape. They grow wings. I mean, that's not something you can even think about. Well, we as human beings let our minds stop us from things all the time. And so if you say, well, I'm thinking outside the box. Well, I'm sorry, that's not far enough. You're thinking that there is a box. Blow up the box. Yeah. Nobo means no box, no boundary. I mean, for a fish to grow wings like that. And I got to tell you a real funny story real quick on that. And I know you want to go on, but just real quick. I wrote another book called Songwriting for Dummies. And it's an international bestseller because it's part of the Dummy series. And I was involved in a lot of hit songs at one time in my life. And so my co-writer wrote 27 top 10 hits. But he was telling a funny story because in one of his songs, Eye of the Tiger, went to #1 in the world at the same time. And every song I mentioned, you go, oh, I know that song. Oh, I know that song. But he got with Sammy Hagar, and Sammy Hagar had his own, great career, and then was the lead singer for Van Halen. But they got together to write a song, and they both couldn't come up with anything. I mean, a half hour, nothing. Not a chord was struck, not a word was spoken. They were like nothing. And finally, Sammy goes, man, Jim, I'm sorry, man. I'm just intimidated. I'm afraid of looking dumb in front of you. And Jim goes, gosh, I'm the same thing. I'm just afraid of being a fool in front of you. And so they right then made a agreement with each other that they both allowed each other to be dumb. Let's just do anything that's done, but let's just be free. It went to Nomo land, I call it. Within a half hour, they wrote Sammy Hagar's biggest hit. That's what noble thinking does. We stop ourselves. We keep ourselves from our greatest good. So I love Nobo. I've had a chance with people, private clients, and those that even are in the 30-day challenge. When we go into Nobo, some of the things that have come out just by having that attitude is unbelievable, remarkable, a shift in someone's life by just shifting into Nobo. You just drop all the self and whatever those walls that we're so afraid of that we hold to protect ourselves. You just let them drop and allow yourself to be free. You can write the biggest hit song in 30 minutes too.
You know what's funny about Nobo? It reminds me of when a little kid starts asking why, and then they ask why, and then they ask why, and they ask why, and they ask, about something significant. Well, why do we do that? And why is it that? And why is it that? And it's kind of the same thing, because if you really want to get to a point where you're not, people like to think of, they say, I think outside the box, but what I think they're doing is they're exploring the 4 corners of the box.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, look at me. I'm like, most people are right here, right? They're in the middle. and then the creative people are doing this for the most part. And everyone's going, well, I can think outside the box. And like you said, there is no box. They've got to take it and destroy the box and
Blow
make
it
their
up.
own shape. And so but the reason I say it is because I think one of the easiest ways to realize where Nobo might need to apply to you or where you might still be within a box is to ask yourself, or why is this my goal, or why am I going for this? Because it's really easy to get caught up in small things. You know, I have a coaching client I was speaking with just yesterday, and he had this goal, and when I really pressed him on it, what I realized was it wasn't really his goal. It was a goal based off of a perception of his peers. It was almost like a club. You know, everyone else was going for this or had accomplished this, so he felt obligated to make that his goal. And I started to ask him, well, if you could design the life you wanted, if it didn't have to look like anyone else's business, if it didn't have to look like any of your friends or your mentors or your colleagues, what would it actually look like? If it was a blank canvas, not how can you tweak where it is right now to match what you want, but destroy the image of what it is right now, what would you want your life to look like? How would your business fit in? And it was really interesting to start to see the creativity that came out because he never thought of it as destroying the box. He always thought about, well, how could I tinker the box here? Could I make a little bit bigger box? Could I change the color of the box? You know, he never thought about not using that shape. And so the second I saw Nobo, it resonated with me. Any other good stories you can share about Nobo or good ways that things that people could take to apply to their business? Because I know that's a deep one there.
Well, it is, and the one that came to mind, I guess I'm staying with the music for a while because I've had a chance to do different things because of Nobo. I didn't see judgment stops us from our greatest good. We judge others, we judge ourselves. Just like this gentleman that you're talking about that you're coaching, he was in judgment over, well, this is what my peers do, rather than being free. So I was very blessed and fortunate to be given the Presidential Merit Award from the Grammys in 1991. And it was because a good friend of mine founded a rock group, Kansas. And Kansas still today is out there doing great things, drawing lots. I just went to their concert. They were here in San Diego recently. 30,000 people at the concert. I mean, come on. It's like their 40th year, touring. So it's great. But we together one time said, you know what, let's do something good with music. Let's make a change. And a friend of ours came down with cancer and said, let's get all the rock stars and I get all the tennis pros together, and let's bring them all together to raise money. And so we had a meeting in New York with all the presidents of record heads. And we could get the meeting because at the time Kansas was just nailing it. It was the late 70s. They I think they were just all over the top of the charts with Carry On and all Dust in the Wind. And so I remember having the meeting, and the president of CBS goes, well, this all sounds good, but I could never get any artist to ever donate their time for charity. At that time, it had never been done. It had never been done. Music had never been used to raise money for anything. And so we looked at each other, and this is where we went totally into Nobo land. We walked down and go, we're going to do this. We're just two crazy guys that just decided they wanted to do something. And we just looked at each other and smiled and said, yep, it never been done. And all the big heads of the music industry said it couldn't be done. It's impossible to do. And that first year, we had Queen, we had Santana, we had Alan Parsons Project, we had Loverboy, we had Survivor, we had the Commodores. I mean, everyone showed up. And it's just because two guys decided that, you know what, we're going to do it anyway, even if it's never been done. And that was the best, maybe if I go back to a lot of different things I've done as far as a real Nobo time for us. And just deciding that it's something that you mentioned, your client, well, what would it that you'd love? Even though, maybe these people say this, what is it that you truly love? See, too many people live in their conditions rather than create their conditions. And that's probably the biggest point I want to get across in the book is that you're all creators. You say, oh, the real estate market's down. I can't do this. The creative people, they, even when the market's down, are thriving. You get creative, but you got to allow yourself to be creative. God's given you this gift of amazing creativity. Einstein didn't have a bigger brain than any of us. He just had a very solid connection. So it's slow down, Take the time to be connected to that bigger you, and you'll be amazed. I mean, did I ever think I'd be an internationally best-selling author? No way. I mean, my English teachers are probably crying right now in laughter.
Yeah, amen to that. So that's awesome, man. That's really, really something else. And our buddy from down at Fort Benning, Grant Cardone, always says, instead of worrying about the economy, go create your own economy. And I think that it's right in alignment with what you're talking about.
Very much so. So we lay out, one thing to talk about something, I'll just say last thing, but it lay out a course for you. And I think that's what we've done in Be a Beast is lay out the framework for you that I've been blessed to, through private coaching and through my 30-day Beast Mode On, help people, get to that point and have mental triggers so that it's really easy to slip. It's so easy to slip, but when you have a mental trigger to bring you right back to the right mindset, anything and everything is possible.
Amen. So I'm going to ask you a tougher one. What's not in the book? What's not in the book that you wish was in the book? Or what's not in the book that you think is important that people out there need? What do they need that's in your head but not in this book right here?
Well, see, I cheated on this one. It's only book one of a 4-book series. So there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more, but this gives you the foundation. It gets you, because half the battle is waking ourselves up to our thoughts. Most of the time, we just live into conditional, patterns. And how do you break those patterns? You have to start becoming awake, because you'll fall into your pattern before you even know it. And
sure.
You're like,
give me a specific example, though. I know what you're saying, but for people that are only hearing abstract words, give me a daily example of a pattern, interrupting the pattern, and.
Well, I give a lot of times I use my own personal things. Let's say I do a financial pattern. All right, so let's say every month, depending what the number is. Over the years, it's changed, but I'm just going to use a number right now. It's $20,000 a month I make. Okay, I make $20,000 a month, and so that gets ingrained kind of in my subconscious, right? So all of a sudden, I have a great month, and I make $30,000. Woohoo! I made $10,000 more than I made last month. How cool is that? And then what many times happens is that the next month I make 10, because my blueprint or my thermostat is set at 20. And so my subconscious won't allow me to just now go up to 30. It's like, I have to come awake. Well, what am I doing to create that? Well, all of a sudden the conditions change. Well, wait a minute. No, I got lost. I didn't hear my own teachings. I have to be awake to it to go, okay, because we just have to learn how to stop ourselves and understand we're falling into a pattern. And what is a pattern? Pattern is just habits doing over and over again. So you want to create new patterns and new habits. So one of the things that we lay out, we only, in this is some of the pattern busters and patterns and habits you can start today. They'll make all the difference. The funny thing is most people are looking for a quick fix. They're not willing to kind of like get there fast by going slow. And you'll get there so much faster anyway. I mean, it could be amazing quick fix, but you slow down and you start these little things. To do you've heard me say already in this conversation, to do the big things, pay attention to the little things. So I don't know, does that answer your question? I could probably give you 1,000 different ones.
No, that's a perfect answer. And I think that one of the people that I mentor has the same thing, where whenever he gets into a pattern of success, he falls back into complacency, pattern of success back to complacency. And you're right, it's the thermostat is set to the wrong number. And what I really think it comes down to is that when our thermostat is set to a number lower than we perform at, we seep back in our levels of activity. So let's say that something goes on, you get overly excited, you get amped up. Like in my company, we have what we call a push period, which is basically a 2-week-ish sales contest where people start waking up early, they show up in the office at 7 a.m., they make like a 14 or 17-day commitment to go all out, full intensity, morning to night, clear the schedule. It's kind of like a sprint marathon, if you will, right? Like for 14 days, I'm going to go until I can't go anymore, and I leave it on, on the field. And a lot of people will bust out these sales numbers that they've never done before. They'll bust out tens of thousands of dollars in sales, personal sales in a short period of time, and then they'll seep right back down to small numbers again. And I always said the real reason isn't that things suddenly aligned or things. It's simply that they were taking a different level of daily activity. Their level of activity was up here. They got results up here. And then when they got excited about it, they thought they could dip their activity a little bit. And all of a sudden, the whole thing crumbles. And so, like you said, having these patterns and having these anchors in you that help bring out peak performance and help you make the right little decisions every day, that's where it really matters. So those of you that are watching this, if you've ever felt like you've been in a rut, or maybe you've just had your best month ever and you want to stay there, it's really important to reflect and go back and say, what are the little things I was doing that I wasn't doing before? You know, what was the difference between good and great? What was the difference between what I was doing when I was making $20,000 a month? What did I do differently to make 30? And really pinpoint the small things that made the difference. And then, like you've been talking about this whole time, let's anchor them. Let's decide, okay, the little things I was doing was I was waking up earlier. I was waking up an hour earlier, or I was making sure I exercised daily, or maybe I was writing my goals more often, or maybe I was just being more organized with time blocking. You know, these are the types of things that I hear, at least regularly in the business world, but I just thought that I would share that because I really think it comes down to lowering the standards and the level of activity that you're settling for, and that's typically where the fluctuation comes from. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, it became, and you don't even know you've done it because it's your subconscious saying, "Wait a minute, I'm not familiar with you making 30,000 a month," so it gets uncomfortable, and it's going to do everything in its power. It's going to give you your, all of a sudden your car is going to break down, all these things because it's like it's going to fight tooth and nail because it's not familiar with you being that successful. So you have to visualize, you have to see it on daily, you have to do, some of the tools that we give you in the Be a Beast book, so that you can maintain that success. I look back to my tennis career. I remember I became a world ranked player, but I could only get this high. Anytime I had a chance to beat a really big name player, I self-destruct because my subconscious wasn't used to me being able to be there. It wasn't really until after I came off the tour and I learned more about these principles that I decided to go out when I was 50 and go out and do nothing but become number one, because I never allowed myself to go there. And it was a whole mental thing. Yeah, I had to still do the physical things, but there was such a difference when it got down to crunch time. I then, because I saw myself winning the tournaments, I then could win the tournaments, where before my subconscious wasn't used to it. That's how it happens in money. I'm not used to having $100,000 in the bank. So it self-destructs. You think, well, why would my mind be so such a villain to me? It's not that it's a villain, it's just misguided love. It's just trying to protect you and keep you comfortable. It doesn't know any better. So you better start feeding it something so it's comfortable with you having that. I became comfortable winning tournaments because I visually saw myself winning tournaments. And at the end of the year, I became number one. And, I figured, man, if I can do it with myself, I can do it with anyone. I had had a lot of success with others, but it was really tough to do it for myself. In fact, I think I fired myself 3 times that year, but I ended up number one. So it can, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just having, these pattern busters available to you that they can keep coming back. Because, hey, I don't care how much I know. I don't care how much I coach. And Aaron, I'm sure you can relate to this in your coaching. If you don't, do things to keep you in it, you'll fall prey to your old habits. I do. I'll all of a sudden fall, oh my gosh. And I go, wait a minute, stop. This is where I talked about being awake. And then having something like Respa, having Laspro. You don't know Laspro, we didn't talk about it. Having Nobo. You'll have all the animals. You'll have the whole beast. You have the whole jungle to call upon and go, boom. Then you're right back on track.
Hit me with Laspro since you brought it up. and then I'm going to ask them how they can get in touch with you and where to buy the book. But let's hear about Laspro.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you Laspro, but I'll be honest with you. It's not in the first book. It's in my video series. It is in my 30-day challenge. If you decide to take the Beast Mode On challenge, you're going to learn all 15 animals. But Laspro is the falcon, and it's so cool. In the videos, we have the falcon going over 200 miles an hour, hitting its target every time. How in the world do you do that? So what can we learn from the falcon that it can hit its target at going 250 miles an hour? I mean, it was tracked. I mean, it's so cool to see this. And it's very inspiring. It just means that we get focused on too many different things. We got multitask to do this, and so we're not at the highest level that we can be. So what I do with my athletes or with my business coaching clients, I have them just pick 3 things they're going to focus on. That's it, 3 intentions. And anything else is a distraction. We can change that later, but for right now, for this week, this is what we're going to LASPER on, which is laser protectivity. It's lasering in. And if you laser in on 3 things and do them at the highest, oh my gosh, all of a sudden your world changes. The problem is we get into kind of overwhelmed because we got so many things we're thinking about and all this, and so we can't laser in. So my company's name, Extreme Focus. So LASPRO plays a really big role. And it really, I tell you, with the Army Rangers that I work with, man, they just latch on to LASPRO and RESPA big time, because it's like taking all the distractions. We have over 65,000 thoughts a day, and they just distract us. So just narrowing it down, being very focused on these 3 intentions, and all of a sudden you go, wow. If you did that every day, had 3 different intentions you focus in on every day, think about it, in a 5-day work week, that's 25 things that you have freaking nailed. Wait, I used to do it five intentions. Sorry, that's the 25. That's 15. You got it. I had to stay present for a moment, because sometimes I move it up to 5. But if you, all right, so we do, let's say but you just do 3, 5 times a week. That's 15 things that you've nailed. Your whole life would look totally different. Everything, when you've got a focus approach.
Amen. So how can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about what you do? Where do they go? How do they connect with you?
Well, I live in Rancho Santa Fe. Come on down. I got a pool, jacuzzi, lots of space. No, no, that is true. I mean, but
I'm coming now.
all right. So extremefocus.com. So extremefocus.com. You can go there, find out about our programs. You can find out, I keep talking about the 30-day challenge. Our next Beast Mode On challenge starts September 9th. I don't know when you air this. This has time. Jump in and grab on and just get started. Anytime that you make a decision, make a committed decision. You're going to be successful no matter what. So you'll learn about that. But if you want more about the book, go to beatbeastbook.com, and that'll take you right to information about the book. I am so blessed. When you look at the endorsements I've been blessed to get on this book, it was just, it amazed me. One of the reasons is, number one, be honest with you, it's because the people who have endorsed this book have huge followings, and I'm blessed. There's 2 people in particular that endorse this book that only endorse 1 book a year, and yet they chose Be a Beast. So I'm just so grateful for that. So beabeastbook.com and extremefocus.com is where you can get you can click on if you want to be part of the 30-day challenge, because it's kick-ass, it's fun. And one thing I love about it is that the people in it have all become, you become a family and friends. I mean, I had a 2-time Super Bowl winner in it, and I remember one guy who was in it, this player played for Pittsburgh when they won a Super Bowl, and played Chicago when they won a Super Bowl. And anyway, he's just one of the guys in the 30-day challenge. And this one person in the challenge goes, oh my gosh, he knew, he was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So it was really cool. And then he just found this guy's just a regular person just like him. And then it just, you find this common thread. Doesn't matter what they've done or whatever. When we have a common thread of kind of a brother sisterhood of coming together to help each other, man, anything's possible.
Amen to that. Any last words of wisdom, or any last suggestions, tips, ideas, or golden nuggets for the crowd?
This is going to sound like, oh, this is just too easy to do. Well, that which is easy to do is easy not to do. But I'll tell you what, if you just went to bed every night and said thank you, and I can say this, and I don't know how many people are going to be listening to this, but very few of you will do that. You'll be amazed at what your life will do, because the more you're grateful for things, the more you have to be grateful for. That is a secret sauce of success. Is anytime, even if you're going to go into a sales call or whatever, just all of a sudden, just take a moment, RESPA, and then think about being grateful for even the opportunity. You're a whole totally different person. Your energy is different. Every time I get into something where I really feel stressed, I stop and I write 10 things I'm grateful for. All of a sudden, I got a whole different feeling. There are no solutions within the problem. You have to move your energy up above the problem. Gratitude is the greatest way to get you there. So then there's all kinds of answers to anything.
I love it. So you got to take yourself out of the problem mode and into creation mode.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Amen.
Well, Dave, you're the man. I loved hanging out with you on here. Definitely looking forward to having you again sometime. Anyone that needs to get in touch, there's Dave Austin. Again, it's Extreme Focus. And thanks a ton. Grab yourself a copy of Be a Beast, guys. This is full of golden nuggets. Every page or so I was highlighting something or writing notes. But, again, thanks for taking the time out to share everything. And I hope everyone out there pick up a copy of this book.
Thanks. Hey, one last thing. Feel free to reach out to me. I love to hear from people. Don't be bashful. daa@extremefocus.com is my email. I'll answer them personally. Reach out to me. My Facebook, Dave Austin, or we have Extreme Focus too. But communicate. I love that. That's part of my whole mission of the life is helping others grow. And so if I can be of service, reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, this is Aaron Ludin, joined with Dave Austin, and you've been watching another podcast that is not called the Marketing Warrior Hangout anymore, so never mind. But we will end it here. Thanks a ton, Dave, and everyone out there, be a beast.